Let's talk. So, we have focused a lot on reading and writing this semester, of course, as you would expect in English class, but English is about talking too. So it's time to talk about talking. English is the language we speak after all, and talking has an awful lot to do with listening well, especially when we're engaging in an academic discussion. So we're not just talking about talking, but we're talking about engaging in a proper academic discussion. When we engage in these discussions, there are certain ways that we should conduct ourselves so that we get the most out of the experience, and everybody else can too. So it's time to learn all about how to use academic language. So this is like a specific way of carrying ourselves and speaking when we are engaged in these types of discussions. So this is Learning Target 1.5, and by the end of this playlist, your goal is to be able to say, I can use academic language when engaging in an academic discussion. That doesn't mean a whole lot to you right now, but obviously I'm going to tell you what all of this means. As always, please remember, you will use and reuse and reuse and reuse all of the resources in this playlist to help you master this learning target. So here's what our proficiency scale looks like this time. Starting with a 1, roughly 20%. Can perhaps contribute something to the academic discussion, but it lacks authentic relevance or meaning. You do not summarize before responding to another or before changing the subject. If you change the subject, you don't signal this change. A 2, 40%. Maybe you can contribute something relevant or meaningful, but you don't summarize before responding to another or before changing the subject. If you do change the subject, you don't warn everybody that that's what you're about to do. Have you ever been in a discussion with somebody or tried to talk to somebody and they just sort of randomly change the subject and it makes you feel kind of deflated, like, oh, I guess they don't really care about what I was saying. So that's what I mean by changing the subject and signaling that you're doing so. All right, let's talk about what you need to do to get a 3, and this is passing. You can contribute a relevant and meaningful point to the academic discussion by appropriately summarizing and responding to a point made by another, or by summarizing and clearly signaling a change in subject. All right. Now, how can we go above and beyond, get a 4? Can do all of that, all of this that you can do for a 3, but also you can explain what academic language is and its function and significance to an academic discussion. And then finally, to get a 5, to really get to the top, you can do all of this, and you can also use academic language when responding to other readers' comments and book reviews on the Goodreads website. So ultimately, the goal is for you to understand what an academic discussion is and how you should speak in an academic discussion, and then to apply it to sort of a quote-unquote real-world situation. That would be, a lot of times, real-world discussions these days happen online, so that's what we're going to do, and you're going to be engaging with people that aren't your classmates. So if you can do that respectfully and well, according to everything you're going to learn in this playlist, then you will have reached a 5. All right. So if you're preparing for an academic discussion, these are the things you need to keep in mind, and these are all the things that we're going to break down in this playlist. This is going to be a pretty big playlist because number 1 says to come thoroughly prepared for the discussion, and there is a lot that is wrapped up in being prepared for our discussion, where you will be assessed. For one thing, you have to read the text, and it's going to be a longer text. So that's the first part of the preparation, but also preparing notes, having some sort of argument in mind that you want to make, and knowing how you might respond to what others might say. All of that goes into preparation. So not only reading the novel or play, a long work, but taking notes about your reading and predicting what other people are going to say, and all of that goes into being prepared. So even just this number 1 is going to be big, okay? Number 2, Make sure that your comments during the discussion are relevant to the discussion. This goes back to what I said earlier. If you're talking with somebody and they just change the subject on you when you're trying to make a point, that would be frustrating to you, right? So that's what I mean by relevant. It ties into what's already being said. Number 3, you need to, during the discussion, either respond directly to the previous speaker or indicate that you are changing topics. Okay? That is part of it being relevant in a way, but this is a specific way of speaking that we're going to practice in the playlist. Number 4, always somehow summarize or reference what others say before adding your contribution. So you're making it very, very clear to everybody and that's involved in the discussion what specifically you're responding to. Okay. It also communicates that you heard what other people say. And people need to know that they are heard. Okay. So we're going to break all these down in the playlist. I'm not going to explain them very thoroughly here because that's what the playlist is for. But I am going to tell you this warning here. So the thing that you're going to be tested over, the learning target and the assessment, all have to do with this discussion. So although you're eventually going to be assessed during a discussion, the playlist includes many steps, and some of the steps are large, like read an entire novel or play, okay? But these steps must be completed in order to be able to participate in that discussion. So you can't come and discuss with us if you haven't actually read the piece that we're talking about and haven't prepared notes for it. Or practicing the discussions with us. So you should not attempt to skip any of the steps. If you actually want to participate in the assessment, you have to have done everything else. So just like always, you're not going to be graded on the playlist activities, but they are absolutely necessary for you to be able to do the assessment. You have to do what's in the playlist, okay? And that's for your own good, because if you come in blind and try to join in our discussion, for one thing, it's going to be very uncomfortable for you, but it's also going to ruin the discussion for everybody else. We want to have a real, authentic academic discussion. So there's my warning to you. So with that being said, you're free to move forward in the playlist and get started.